Hello people, my name is Socool4 Gaming, aka Oliver, and I am an up-and-coming writer with interests within video games, movies, anime, and manga. I tend to write what's on my mind within the current moment, from dystopian sci-fi setting to a more grounded and character-driven tales in different periods of time, with elements of the supernatural. My planned projects include Life Has Two Perspectives, The Legacy of Dobrowolski, and other short stories in between. I feel like writing. This video is to show my process of writing and what it looks like with some steps to get through, rough ideas of how my process for writing works. And this is for up-and-coming writers around postgraduate or undergraduate degrees. So enjoy. Step 1 is your initial idea. What is the trigger that allows you to get these creative juices flowing? Is it a song lyric? Is it a movie that you recently watched? Is it a game that you recently finished? Or some kind of happenstance that happened in your personal life? It's hard to pinpoint that trigger. It's probably when you keep talking about it out loud repeatedly and cannot stop talking about it. You should probably write it down with a pen and paper. The idea step of my process is like a dice roll. Sometimes you get a bunch of ideas in one day or week, or sometimes months go by with no idea. The idea of the trigger is so important to me as it helps to get ideas down for a story that you want to tell, and the difference of having something for assignment or nothing for that assignment. My advice for getting ideas is not to worry about it. It takes time. Crafting a story, it's like making a cake. You need all the ingredients beforehand before you bake a cake. It's the same with a story. Bringing all of these ideas together to a story, I recommend having a notepad and pen. Notes on your phone work too. Review at all times, so you can jot down anything that comes to your mind, or what event in your real life has happened to you. So these ideas can morph into a concept or theme that I want to tackle. Research is not an interesting part, but a necessary one. For me, research takes a different angle, where most of my stories focus on specific historical context, and my story, Legacy of Dobrowolski, has 3 parts focusing on different time periods. Where part 1 is set in 1860s Poland, part 2 in 1946 America and Europe, and part 3 in 1996 Japan. I want to do research on these countries and what their customs are, what culture they have, and how that time period has affected that country. To make the world feel real within my story, but I use supernatural elements in my work. Doing research, it helps me to get a better perspective on what I'm willing and how I can work it into the story. It's more of a me thing, but I want to make my stories and the worlds within them more believable and more relatable to people who read my story from where they came from, and not lead them to be stereotypical depictions within my writing. Research is a flip of a coin. If you write what you know from the background from where you're from, the less research is required when tackling different concepts and culture, which is negated by having good characters, world-building, and story. I can just transcend the research that you have done, which leads nicely to characters are an important thing to me, as there are 2 types of plot: a story that can focus on character-driven, or a story can focus on the narrative itself. I tend to focus more on the character-driven story itself, as you both need a balance of both to make a story. My favourite manga author, Hirokazu Araki, wrote a book called Manga in Practice, where he details his process of manga creation and where he highlights how he creates characters with 2 things. One is a character table, which is self-explanatory, where you fill out information about your character down to name, sex, gender, age, origin, likes, dislikes, affiliation, and many others, like you see fit. Araki sometimes uses blood type and their favourite food or song. The second is the character's attributes and relatability, where the protagonist has common traits that are identifiable to a common audience of the text, showing struggles and hardships of the main protagonist and the type of heroism if the story requires it, aka the hero's journey. For the opposite of the antagonist, where the character's traits are commonly seen as negative and which challenges the protagonist in some way. However, each story does not need an antagonist, or something to challenge the protagonist in a way to change his worldview or perspective. Where genres can dictate how your character could be written, like within Araki's manga world, where there are different genres: shonen, young male; shoujo, young woman; seinen, male; yosei, woman. These demographics don't apply to our Western world, just only in the manga industry. However, it could inform a basis on how I can write characters for a specific demographic or someone else who wants to get into writing. However, if you focus on specific demographics, sometimes you might get different audiences that you tend. But if they are written well, they show what your characters is about in the world building. After you find out what characters are part of your story, start to place them into the world that I am creating or what you're creating. Remember part 2 about doing research well. When it comes in handy if it's a contemporary style of writing set in a specific region of the world within a specific time, where my story Legacy of Dobrowolski has elements mentioned in part 2. The research adds a level of authenticity towards my story and your stories as well by making the world feel lived in. Due to historical elements of showing how people lived during that time to make it feel lived in. For a truly fictional text that you and I are going to write about, down to sci-fi, fantasy, or something different, something else different, world building is a hard step if your world is not real. So the research phase is best used for world building. How is your world going to work? What rules/laws do they have? How does the magic/technology work? How are they dressed? What sort of buildings do they have? Is there a hierarchy? If you're wondering why I said a lot of questions, it's because it's the best way to build a world. I would recommend writing a list of common questions that I ask myself, and you should too. But by asking these questions, you have a clearer picture of the world that you're trying to set for your characters and how you can write scenarios for the cast of characters and how they can overcome it, using life and hopefully within your world. If you're struggling with a question, you can try 3 online world building sites that can help you plan out your world better. The world building aspect is challenging to talk about, as each person has a different method of world building. Some that I know draw maps of the world, draw characters, and draw main locations. Envisioning this world makes it easier to write and talk about with a visual aid. Without one, it's harder. I said a couple of lines ago, to make a world make it feel more real. What does it mean? I don't know. For me, that line means that the world feels organic, that the inclusion of the reader doesn't change the world itself, like the entire world was created when the reader opened the books, or the book itself. But it should feel like time has passed for these characters in some way that isn't their first adventure. However, you can still do a first adventure narrative if we know the protagonists or the main cast's past lives, or what they have been through prior to the story that you're telling, or that I'm telling. When beginning to write any section, just think about mentioning something that the only protagonist and the main cast know that isn't overly told to the reader, like a nickname from childhood or a previous quest a party which went south. Something that shows that time has passed and time is flowing naturally, so the protagonist has changed after a period of time. aka he or she is a different position from the start of the story to the end of it, which with different life circumstances. A great example of anime and manga is called frierenbeyondjourneysend by Kaneto Yoada, where Frieren is an elven mage, joins a party of heroes, eventually kills the Demon King. Frieren, an elf, lives longer than normal humans and sees one of the people she cares about die of old age. She processes the grief over time and to learn about Himmel, her mentor. She takes a young mage, Fern, by her side to search for answers about Himmel, while other events unfold around them. Frieren goes back to the roots with just villains, not sympathetic ones. By setting the story after the main threat, the Demon King is defeated, highlights the world building with flashbacks about Himmel, Frieren, and what the venture meant for Frieren. that she does not know about know Himmel after Himmel's death, which uses the fantasy setting as a vehicle for character exploration than telling a hero's journey, where it mixes the world building and story wonderfully onto structure. Structure for me focuses on the common 3-act structure or the 5-act structure. The 3-act structure consists of Act 1, which is the setup, Act 2, which is the confrontation or the conflict. Finally, Act 3 is the resolution, where the Act 5 structure consists of the prologue, the conflict, the resonant action / the climax, the falling action, and the denouement or the epilogue. I follow these basic structures, and you should too, where if you follow these structures, you will have an easier time progressing the story naturally. I tend to use these sections as the building blocks of my story. When I get an idea for a scene that is way later in the story than the one I'm currently on, because it might fit within the story, or I like what I came up with that, and can add a different dynamic between my protagonist and the antagonist that I want to explore during the themes in that current time that I'm writing. Structure is hard to discuss and how to tackle it because it's a formula to help you understand. Writers don't like to conform to standards, so they change them and format them in ways that changes the established convention. So give it a try. Onto formatting. And finally, formatting is the hardest thing to do after you've written your story. By making the format that matches with common standards in the writing world, by having a 2.2 with an Arial font is the most common practice for writing, but you can format your story any way you want. Examples like words on top of each other, or spiraling, dialogue in forms of text messages, or in digital form. These are different ways that you can change in terms of formatting, but the bigger part is editing. Editing seems like a fun process, but it's the longest, which in turn looks over your whole story, checks for spelling, punctuation, and grammar, or if something needs rewriting. As you don't like the sentence or paragraph I wrote, and you might write too. It's just a long process. I would recommend that someone helps you to go over your writing to make sure it makes sense, as offering fresh eyes helps your writing in one run, making your writing better. As you keep looking over your work, you and I will tend to miss common mistakes, as we should be very familiar with our work. It just takes time. Get feedback from people, and just take it slow. Don't rush into it. Onto the conclusion. And this is how I write. This is the basis that I follow during my writing. What I do when I write is to listen to music that gets me within the mood of the theme. Like with sci-fi, with some techno music, or a gothic story with some gothic motifs or types of song. So please like and subscribe. I will do writing updates every 3 to 4 months as my writing progresses and comes along, with different aspects of different stories, which stories I'm focusing on, which new stories I'm writing, and this sort of task has given me perspective, and like I want to get back into video essays. I've obviously haven't been doing them in like a while because I felt kind of burnt out and also deflated, because I want to cover like interesting concepts and I want to try something different. Some of the videos I'm very proud of are the Werewolf It's the Horror and the Legacy Flash Games videos, because I'm very happy with those videos. It's just like sort of different aspects of the horror and Legacy Flash Games, which is still getting updates. I'm still subscribed to that person. Well, I just haven't done anything about it because other stuff, but I want to go back into it, check out what's new in that series, that analog series, and I do want to remaster some of my older reviews, like my Life is Strange review, which I do not like. It's like 40 minutes, and like I do not like at all. I want to give it more of a time and day, because I played it like years ago, and then like I replayed it like literally a year ago. Yeah, roughly a year ago. So like, especially online, and like I want to cover it more in depth. Not just Life is Strange at its own, but Life is Strange as a whole franchise, from the first game to the latest game. So like my thoughts and perspectives, because this year and last year I did play all of them. So like yeah, all of them. So I want to tackle that. I want to tackle some other projects like I had in my mind for like years, which were Lego Batman the video game and Batman Arkham Asylum. I still have like the footage from like years ago, but I still haven't used them because I just can't come up with like a good way to structure it. But I'll figure it out eventually. So yeah, I hope you guys might enjoy my rambling, and please like and subscribe for more and updates, stuff, back into video essays, and possibly gameplay videos because I feel tired and burnt out. So yeah, it's been a bit, so hope you enjoy. You can check out all the rest of the content, like, and stuff, so yeah, good. Bye!